Shalom and welcome to my kitchen. I'm Eenie Frost and we are going to be making a very interesting menu today. Usually when we think of a Sunday brunch, we always think of a milchig luncheon. That is something that does not have anything in it that is meat or has a meat derivative. But why not a Fleischig brunch? Something that is meat and does have meat in it. Or maybe on a Saturday night. It's so lovely to have one or two couples over for a very light dinner. And oftentimes we think again about milchigs. But why can't it be Fleischig? We do our cooking on Friday for Saturday lunch and Saturday night. And this menu, this dinner, can certainly be made on Friday and have almost everything ready to serve on Saturday night. First, we're going to make a chicken liver casserole. And I have to tell you, this is Dee Tarnoff's idea. You know, Dee helps me on the show, and we spend so many hours in preparation. That's really the secret of why we can cook all of this so fast, because of all the preparation. But Dee said that she makes this all the time, and it's always a success. And what it is layering a chicken liver casserole. The first thing that we need is 3 cups of cooked rice. Now, you know, 1 cup of uncooked rice will give you 3 cups of cooked rice. And let that set for a moment while you get the other things ready. I'm going to take 1/4 cup of margarine and just take these tomatoes, and I have, you see how you want big tomatoes. You know me, fresh is best. I don't like things cut up into little chunky things that they lose their flavor. I like big pieces of something. These tomatoes are just sliced in crosswise. And by melting them and sautéing them a little bit, they'll bring up the flavor. Whenever you are going to cook something, even a casserole, I know you'll say, Eenie, it's going to be cooked anyway. But if you want to bring out the individual flavors of what you're making, it's really better if you sauté it first. Even if it's celery and green pepper or onions or whatever you're doing, it's really better if you do sauté it in a pan or in the microwave just for a minute or two to take the flavors away. And then give it a little feeling with a little salt and pepper. We have kind of put the salt and pepper together because I think that way it gives it a very nice flavoring, and it brings up the good flavors of setting it in a layered kind of a situation. Now then, use a very nice casserole. Find something that's very pretty that you can bake in and freeze in and cook in. Or if you just want to use a regular 8x12 Pyrex pan, if you have a nice holder for it, that's perfect. You can bake in it and bring it right to the table. That's a lovely way to serve. This one, and if you want to measure it, you know the best way to measure is always to take your measuring water and just fill it up in here and see if this is going to be the same as your 8x12. And then you can tell if this is a 2.5 quart or a 3 quart. This particular one is a little over 2.5 quarts. So on the bottom, I'm going to put the rice. And you want your rice to be nice and fluffy. So we've cooked it, and we'll set it here on the bottom across this casserole. And in order to give it a little more flavor, when you cook it, instead of cooking it in water, cook it in a bouillon cube. But if you're going to use the Israeli bouillon cubes, I must say that they're very salty, so you do not have to add any more salt into the rice. That will be plenty. Then on top of the rice, let's put the tomatoes. You'll see how pretty they're going to be. This gives it an interesting and chunky look when you go to serve it. When your guests come in to eat it, they're going to be surprised themselves to see and to feel this kind of a feeling inside of what they're going to think is, oh, it's just a plain rice dish. But it really isn't. It's going to have a very nice flavor. Now then, we're just going to sauté for a moment a 1/2 pound of mushrooms. And please use fresh. They really give it so much better flavor. Just some nice fresh mushrooms. And set your tomatoes so that they will fill up the whole dish. And you kind of have to decide on the size of the tomatoes that you're buying and the size of your dish so that it's going to work in together. Then just lightly sauté the mushrooms in a little oil, and that'll give it a nice flavor. And spread that carefully over the tomatoes. That is the next layer. Now the last layer, of course, are our chicken livers. And I'm sauteing these chicken livers in some very nice oil and salt and pepper, and first dredge it in a little flour. Take your flour, season it with salt and pepper, dredge your chicken livers in it, and this is about 1.5 pounds. And added to this, to give it a little flavor, I'm going to add 3 green onions that have been sliced up. And here is a tablespoon of parsley, and again, a little salt and pepper to give it a nice flavor. And just put it through for a moment, because it's true, it is going to be baked, but we want it to have a good flavor, and the chicken livers really should be completely cooked. Now carefully layer this over the mushrooms, and it will really be a surprise, because when your guests come in to see it, they'll really wonder what this is all about. Now you see how pretty this is going to look? And in order to dress it up on the top, we kept a couple of the caps off. Here are some of the nice caps that we kept off from some of the mushrooms that looked a little better. So we'll take this whole thing and put it into, and I'm going to pour over this a little bouillon, because this is going to give it a better flavor all the way through. We have taken another bouillon cube and dissolved it in water, in about 1/2 cup of water, and put this in a 350 oven for 1/2 hour. Now when it comes out, we hope it's going to look like this. And the best thing is to pull it out with my puller. If you don't have one of these, they're really wonderful cooks, and you'll see that you won't burn your hand if you use one of them. If you would like one, just write to me. They're $2.50, and I think you'll really love them. Now here's the way it's going to look when it's taken out. And it's all cooked, and we have our nice mushroom caps on the top. And I'll just leave it in the oven to stay warm while we're preparing our other dishes, because I think that this is a very interesting dish and really very delicious, and something people will say, oh, it's so much work, and how did you do it all? But really, it's very uncomplicated, and I think it's something that you will enjoy doing. You know, when I make liver, I always think about my grandfather, Alva Sholem. One time, my mother and father went out of town. So my grandfather and Uncle Alva Sholem, who were at home, decided they were going to make liver. Well, it was quite a disaster, because they knew that when you prepare liver, you see, when you make meat kosher, you soak it in salt a certain amount of time. That is, all meat except liver. Liver must be broiled first to get out all the blood. And this has been broiled first, but we sauteed it afterwards because we wanted to give it a nice flavor. They didn't know how to turn on the oven, and that was before there were automatic pilots. So what did they do? They figured the next best thing that they would do would be, if they took a piece of newspaper, lit it, and put it in the oven. When my mother came home, don't ask, it was really quite a mess. But they knew in order to kosher liver, that's what you have to do. And the other thing, my grandfather was absolutely hopeless on his talit bag. He would take that talit bag and lose it every week. Every week he could never remember where it was. And when we were in Israel, I said, Jack, I'm going to buy you a new talit bag. And I want this to be a nice big one, so we'll never have any problem as to where it is. And this is the one we bought for him. I thought I would talk a little bit about a talit. It's such a beautiful, I see, this is a new style. The men wear the yarmulkes and the kippas to match their outfits now. So I guess he's got all these in here too. The talit is a prayer shawl. And this comes from a commandment in the Bible. In the Torah, in Numbers, it says, the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and bid them to make fringes in the corner of their garments throughout their generations, putting upon the fringe of each corner a thread of blue. And this is the prayer shawl that is worn only by men now, but we have some women in our synagogue who are wearing them, and I think probably in the next generation you're going to see more. Now, around the band is usually written the prayer that must be recited before this is put on. However, on this one, if you can see, it has a beautiful white-on-white pattern, and the prayer is written here, where it says, "Blessed art thou, Lord our God, who has commanded us to wear the fringes." And the fringes are on each corner of this prayer shawl. And if you were to count each one of these fringes and the knots and the corners and the twists, you would come up with how many? 613, of course, for the 613 commandments. And this is worn when you come into the synagogue and when you pray. And they really are, it's a very beautiful and wonderful commandment. In fact, in the Shema, which is a basic proclamation of Judaism, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, is the beginning of a four-part prayer. And the four parts are taken from different parts of the Torah, one of them being the part that I just read to you. There are many prayers that women were not always forced to adhere to because they had to be done at a specific time. Like this had to be done at a specific time. But general prayers, always women had to do. For instance, what is the thing that we do more than anything else? Well, it's eat, of course. And so, before we eat, we always say a prayer. We don't live to eat. Well, at least I hope not. Sometimes I think we all do. But we really eat to live. And so before we start to eat, we say a prayer over bread. We say, "Praised art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has brought the bread from the earth." And just with this dinner, instead of just having plain bread, I thought it would be fun if we had some garlic bread. So we ordered, this is a lovely French bread. And if you order it from your bakery or your delicatessen, it's good to call them a couple days in advance to be sure that they have it. And what I have in here is 1 stick, or that is a half a cup of margarine. And then I have 2 cloves of garlic. And you know what I'm going to say right away. Yes, I believe in the real garlic. You know, by the time you're going to go to the cabinet and get your garlic powder or your garlic salt or whatever it is you use, really all you have to do is put it through this garlic press and you will have delicious fresh garlic. Because look at how nice this is, and it just gives such a wonderful flavor. I don't think that there's anything that can match the real flavor of real garlic. And use it when you cook meats too. Just hide it into your meat and you'll see how delicious it is. Now then, take your pastry brush and paint your bread with it. You'll see how quickly, if you can let this set for a moment until the flavors are together, it will be a little bit better. Then put the garlic butter. This is par margarine, which is very nice to work with. And oh, this bread is so nice and soft, I can't believe it. Dip it in a little parsley. And then dip it in a little sesame seeds. I have about a half a cup of chopped parsley, and this again is fresh. Oh, there's nothing like fresh, really. After you've tried it, you'll see you'll never go back to canned parsley flakes or anything else. Use your fresh parsley all the time when you're cooking with fish or anything. And just dip it in, and then a little sesame. And do this on each one. Put them in the oven. You can put them in the same oven where you have your chicken liver casserole. It will just absolutely work out fine because this should take about, 10 or 15 minutes, and it'll be nice and hot and crunchy. And this will really be delicious. Wrap it up in foil and put it in the oven. And you'll see it'll be all ready by the time we're ready to have dinner. And just put it right in the oven with it. Now I started to think, what would be a nice vegetable to go along with this kind of a dinner? A cold, marinated vegetable. But you know me, it has to be fresh. And I love the look of the fresh vegetables with a nice little marinade on them. I think it gives it such a good flavor. So we're going to use a marinade today that has in it some cider vinegar. Cider vinegar is a wonderful kind of vinegar to use. And here we have 1/4 of a cup of cider vinegar. All right. Let me take a spoon from here. And mixed with that, 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Here's the olive oil, and always be sure to blend that in good before you start, because it's your oil and vinegar mixture that's going to make the difference into your marinade. Now add to that about a teaspoon of salt and 1/2 teaspoon of pepper. And here is some wonderful mustard. If you like the new mustards that have been coming on the market, I think they're all delicious. Try your favorite one. I think they really have good flavors to them. This is a very good mustard. And then a little brown sugar. Now, if you want to make this slim, because this recipe actually comes from that book, Jewish Cooking Made Slim, they're saying when you use the brown sugar to use part of 1 tablespoon of regular brown sugar, and then 1 tablespoon of the brown sugar that is an equivalent on the low-calorie brown sugar if you use that type of brown sugar. And mix that together, and to try to let that sit for just a little while you get your vegetables together. If you're using fresh broccoli, put it in the steamer just for a couple minutes, and then quickly blanch it in cold water, because you do not want that to be too overdone or too soft. Here we have some wonderful broccoli, and I cut off the bottoms. You can use the bottoms, cook them, and use them for your salads or something else. But for this, you don't want to use them. You just want the tops, really. And here I have 1/2 pound of fresh mushrooms that are sliced. And they're really nice to work with. And if you let this marinate overnight, then you can see how it begins to pick up the colors here. You can see the marinating in it. But this can be all done and ready when your dinner party is about to begin. So try this broccoli marinade. I think you're really going to like it. I found it in this new cookbook, and I think that it's really a very interesting kind of a recipe. It's called broccoli mushroom marinade. And I think that that will really be something you'll enjoy making. And a good to go with that kind of a dinner, because with a Fleischig dinner, you want to have a vegetable that's a little heavier in texture. And I think the broccoli and mushrooms go along with that. Now for dessert. Well, the dessert has to be a cake. And what kind of a cake? When you make cakes that have any kind of fruit in them, they'll always be more juicy, more moist, and will last longer. If you make a cake with apples or peaches or bananas or whatever, they're the type of cakes that really last longer. And this is a wonderful parve cake I've had for years. I don't even know where the recipe came from anymore. And it's made with applesauce. Now, the first thing that you have to do is mix together a stick of margarine. You put all the dry ingredients in this bowl first. That's the unusual thing about this cake. You're going to love it because it's a 1-bowl cake. Everything goes in this 1 bowl. First of all, we're going to put the dry ingredients in. I have 1 2/3 cups of flour. I have 1 1/3 cup of sugar. I have a teaspoon of baking powder. I have a teaspoon of baking soda. I have 3/4 of a teaspoon of salt. And then the spices, because this is a spiced applesauce cake. That's what gives it the flavor. You know, when you make applesauce, you always want to be sure that it's spicy. So we have here 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon. You can use a little more cinnamon than other spices. We have 1/4 of a teaspoon of cloves and 1/4 of a teaspoon of allspice. So first you put all the dry ingredients in. Now, to add to that, I think the good moistness of this cake comes through using this kind of a shortening. And I'm going to use Crisco. You, of course, can use whatever you like, but I have found over the years that this mixing with the applesauce really gives it a nice flavor. This is 1/3 of a cup of applesauce, of Crisco, and 1/3 of a cup of water. And this will be slowly blended in. But you'll see how nice and creamy it gives this kind of a feeling. And again, the wonderful part is we're doing it all in one pan. Then add to this 1 cup of applesauce. And if you have applesauce that you made last year, or you're making it now, that's even better. I used to make it with the apples from our tree, and they were always delicious. Just be sure that you get everything up from the bottom, and let that beat for about 1 or 2 minutes. Now, here's an amazing part of this cake. It only takes 1 egg. That's all it takes is 1 egg, because there's a moistness into the rest of it. So we'll crack our egg carefully into a little dish first to check that there isn't any blood, to be sure that it's kosher. And if it's acceptable, then we will add the 1 egg into this nice batter. And you can see already how creamy it is and how it's coming up. Add the 1 egg. And then for flavoring, always be sure that that egg mixes in first before you add anything else into your batter. And then for flavoring, we're going to add raisins. Oh, I love raisins. Do you? If you love raisins, you really love them. And if you don't, then omit them. But you're missing something because they're delicious. I have 2/3 of a cup of raisins, and I have 1/2 a cup of ground nuts. And again, you notice these nuts are not pulverized, because the idea is you want to taste it. You want the texture into the cake. And that's what will give it to it. Now we're going to take our cake and put it into a 9 by 12 pan. This is a very good sized pan to work with this. And one of the reasons when people call and say, Eenie, I had a problem with my cake, I'm going to tell you right now that 96% of the trouble of cakes failing is because you're putting it in the wrong size pan. You figure, oh well, what difference does it make? I'll put it in this size pan or that size pan. Believe me, cooks, it makes a difference. You should always put it in whatever size pan is asked for. That really makes a difference, even though you may not think so at the time you're standing in the kitchen and you're trying to make a couple of cakes and decide how this is all going to work out. But put it into, this is an 8 by 12. You know, they're changing the size of these pans every time I go to the store and I start to measure it. I can't believe it. Like they're doing it with the size of the cans that we buy. It's the same thing with the fruit. Now put this in a 350 oven for about 30 to 35 minutes. And you'll see it'll come out and look just like this one, which I just put a little orange frosting on it. We had some nice fresh orange juice. And nice fresh orange juice is really wonderful to work with when you're cooking. So don't ever hesitate to use nice fresh orange juice. This is mixed with a little confectioner's sugar and a little margarine. And you'll see that this cake really comes out to give you a nice feeling. And now let's see how our casserole is coming along. It should really be cooking up a storm by now, because it doesn't take that long. You know, by the time, don't even put it in the oven until your guests come in the door, because it only takes a few minutes. And here you'll see how lovely it looks with the wonderful colors. It brings up the nice colors on it, and I think that that really means a lot when you're cooking. And here is our garlic bread. It's going to be delicious. So in 1, 2, 3, we have a lovely dinner that's all put together. And if you feel that this looks a little sad and you want to dress it up a little bit, here, we'll take a little bit of parsley. And my mother made these flowers when she was over the other day. Dee thought they were just absolutely great. These are made out of potatoes, or you can make it out of turnips, just to give it a little color to make it look nice. So here we have our wonderful casserole. Ooh, wow, that is hot. But that's how we want it, because that's how it tastes good. And the garlic bread looks very nice. And bring back our broccoli marinade. These are the kinds of things that I find are interesting to do. You know what would be fun on a Saturday night? Look in the newspaper and see if there's an interesting lecture, or maybe an art fair at a local synagogue. And call your friends and say, look, instead of going out to a restaurant and sitting and waiting in line for a table and finally sitting down and eating all those rolls and then not being able to hear each other, come on over and I'll make a light little dinner and we'll have something to eat, and then we'll go to this lecture or art fair or someplace, and you'll see how it will turn out to be one of the loveliest evenings you've had. And maybe your friends will say, well, I'll make something. Good. Let them make something and cook together. That really is even more fun. So I hope that you will make this dinner or use it as a Sunday brunch, because I think it really is something that is special. You can see how we're layering our mold now. Look at how this comes out. When you serve it, each one will have the rice, the tomato, and the mushrooms, and the top. And the garlic bread is just wonderful. Look at how pretty this looks. It has the sesame seeds on it, and the greenery gives it a nice color. And here we have our broccoli and our wonderful applesauce cake that I think is really going to cut up to be a very nice. And this cake will stay moist for a week. All you have to do is keep it in the refrigerator or give it to your husband in his lunchbox to take to the office, and you'll see how really delicious it is. So I hope that you will try to make some of these. Use it on a Saturday night for a very easy dinner, because these are the fun things that we do and the Hamish things that have to do with keeping a Jewish household and talking about things that really have to do with our people and life, as we tell our children and their children what it is to be a Jew and how to live in a beautiful world. Shalom.